What is an open secret in your profession that we regular folk don't know or generally aren't allowed to be told about? That reinforced glass and that security camera may not actually be unbreakable or being monitored or recorded, respectively. If you can see the monitor showing the camera feed, it doesn't actually mean it's being recorded too. These things can just be to make people guess whether it actually works or not. Go ahead, roll that dice. People typically just go somewhere where there isn't a camera or glass instead. There is no cloud, it's just someone else's computer. As a freelance ghostwriter, most of my clients are Russian or Middle Eastern men who publish 5 to 10 ghostwritten romance or erotica books a week under female pen names. They spend $10K a month and double or triple that by flooding the market. At one point, one client told me he had 6 of the top 10 Regency romance spots on the paid bestseller list. As someone who has narrated quite a few audiobooks, I'm here to tell you this person is 100% correct. Not saying I ever did any of those kind of books, but never mind. I'm in IT. We don't always know why the fix works, and we don't care. The sheer magnitude of criminal cases that detectives have that will pretty much never even get looked at, much less investigated due to a massive lack of staffing. Dummy thermostats are pretty common. It basically works like a placebo where people feel more comfortable when they think they have control over the room temperature. It results in way fewer complaints. We know all the websites you are visiting and all the rounds of Minesweeper you are playing while you are at your desk, but as long as you aren't doing anything illegal, we don't care. It kind of surprises me just how many people think that going into incognito mode is hiding them from their employers. People, they're watching you. Teacher here, I learned early on in the game that there are a lot of supplies we don't have to pay for if we just know where to look and how to ask nicely. Want to have lessons about plants? Go to a grocery store/florist a few days ahead and ask if they can set aside their dying flowers for your class. Need cardboard? Ask a store for their old boxes. I've even heard of my colleagues just going to stores and asking for donations to explaining why and getting new stuff for free. It's amazing how much people are willing to go out of their way to help educate kids. Do some research before buying paint. Most companies do something called cross-pouring, where one of their more expensive paints is the exact same paint as one of their cheapest. One company, let's call them Durban-Shilliams, sells 2 products, Super Paint and A100. They are the exact same paint. The cost difference is about $20 per gallon. I did not know that, but I will be making use of that information. Depending on the state, security guards can't actually detain you if they suspect you of a crime. Real estate agents do not believe their job is to get you the best price. To agents, there's an unwritten understanding that you have a realistic expectation when buying a property. They can consult you, guide you, and employ some basic negotiating tactics, but they aren't interested in wheeling and dealing at the chance of a paycheck, even if they make you believe they are hustling hard to find you a diamond deal. If you start becoming unrealistic, many agents will just start to frame everything as a great deal and once in a lifetime to get you to buy to avoid having wasted their time. I can fix most people's computer issues by doing 3 things. 1. Run a free scan for Malwarebytes. 2. Open up a msconfig.msc from typing it in the start menu, then going over to all the services and startup items, and turning off so much crap that it is either a virus, says unknown or a blank for the manufacturer name, or unnecessary. You can Google if you don't know, plus click the box that says hide Microsoft to dumb it down a bit. 3. Make them a new user account that doesn't have admin rights. They'll need to put in an admin name and password when they really want to install things. No need to always be logged in as an admin. Clickbait will kill your PC. Then doing a few reboots. I teach this to family. I just try to act dumb about computers around my family. They don't bother me for help with their computers if they think I don't know anything about them. Large nonprofits have no vested interest in solving the problem they are raising money for. There is little accountability for actual results. The larger the organization, the further they are from real solutions. that some of the best attorneys are public defenders. The problem is that it's a crapshoot. You can literally get the best defender in the state or someone going through the motions. My family owns a peach garden. Peaches are really delicate fruits. They're soft and watery, perfect for any insect to lay eggs. So you need to take good care of them. But sometimes the weather doesn't care about that and stuff might happen, so now all your peaches have bugs. What do? You can't sell spoiled peaches, but you need money. Sell them to juice companies for 5 cents a kilo. Enjoy your war peach juice. This isn't only for peaches, by the way, any sort of juices like that. I already didn't like juice much because of all the carbs. Now you're telling me they got bug eggs too? I'm gonna stick with coffee in the morning, thanks. Addiction counselor here. A lot of police drink too much. A lot of childcare providers use opiates. If you take an actual IQ test, your results will rarely, if ever, be provided to you. The only information you will likely receive is whether you are in an average range or not. Whatever the number is, even when very high, the only typically meaningful results are when an individual scores below 70 IQ or 2 standard deviations below the mean, which is the cutoff for a diagnosis of an intellectual disability. Also, psychologists are unable to take IQ tests once they're trained to administer them. This might seem obvious, but most don't realize this is the case. The results would be totally invalid. When temperamental artists ask us to adjust the sound and we pretend to twiddle knobs. If you buy an antique or a vintage piece, it most likely went through about 5 hands, each one at least doubling the price. Not really a secret, but not as well known as it needs to be. You don't need a pap smear every year, and definitely not before age 21. Gone are the days of getting a pap at age 15 because you want to get on the pill, and every single year from then on. If some creepy old doctor is trying to insist on looking at you naked or to poke around in your body, assuming you want there specifically to have whatever they're examined checked out, i.e. sores in your vag, whatever, that's the red flags. You may need a pelvic or vag exam in certain cases, but why/when this is done should always be explained, and you need to consent before any exam. Sing it with me, folks. Doctors can be creeps too. Doctors can be creeps. Doctors can be creeps too. Doctors can be creeps. Insurance rep here. Your credit score matters more than people realize. It can affect your auto insurance premium by as much as $100 a month. And if you're a renter, I can pretty much ballpark your credit score by running a renter's insurance quote for you. The higher the monthly premium for your renter's insurance, the crappier your credit score. It is not difficult to get super realistic details in CGI. I see people look at stuff like the stitching on shirts and how there's some fuzz on a peach or something like that in an animated film. It looks impressive, but those details are super easy to make. Just snap on a normal map in a particle system. Of course, some details like cobwebs are more complicated, but overall, the tiny little things are just a textural particle system. The actual hard stuff goes completely unrecognized if it's done well. Compliment the character rigging every now and then. It's much more difficult. If you see 12 different sellers for an item on Amazon, in all likelihood, the total number of sellers is probably 3 to 4, all of whom have multiple names selling the same item at different prices. Former profession, Catholic school principal. Open secret, private schools lower their costs and increase their test scores by expelling students with special needs or low grades. Anyone with a disability costs extra because you have to spend more on support services, and private schools like to brag about being academically better than public ones. Instead of helping vulnerable kids, many such schools abandon them for better optics and more money. Current profession, tabletop RPG designer. First off, good on this person for leaving such a crappy system. I hate to hear that private schools would do that, and frankly, they should be ashamed. But also, as a huge tabletop RPG nerd who also goes by the Dungeon Noob's Guide here on YouTube, I like this person even more. For some reason, medical device prices are inflated beyond the stratosphere against what it costs to make them. I understand there are more regulating organizations that are applicable for medical devices and not other products, automotive, electrical, petrochemical, but what the frick? An item that costs us $700 to make is sold to our dealers in $3K. Then they sell those to hospitals in $7K. Then the hospitals sell them to the clients/patients in $10K. Most people who work in IT support really aren't more tech savvy than the average user. They just know how to Google. I worked as a retail manager in the past. A customer's attitude and approach is about 99% of the reason someone would help them solve a problem. Sale ended yesterday? Your return is past the date? You want a better price on a clearance item? Be a normal, kind person and you'll usually get your way. If you start off being crappy or demanding them, sorry, I can't help you. It's store policy. Your dog or cat is much more comfortable when you are there with them during euthanasia. It's really hard when people say, "It's too hard for me to be here with him," and leave the room for it. It's one of the hardest things ever, but they need you there with them. They look around for you sometimes. That being said, if we do the euthanasia without you, we always have one staff member whose only job during the procedure is to cuddle and comfort your pet and tell them how much their owner loves them and what a good boy they are. Having been there when they put down one of our cats, I can confirm he definitely went to us for comfort. It was so hard, and I know you might think you don't want to see that happen, but we felt better being there for him. Miss you bunches, Chucky. We don't actually know how general anesthesia works at the molecular level. There are theories, but nothing concrete. I'm a furniture upholsterer, and the amount of times other professionals just recover the old fabric and filling drives me mental. If you're paying for reupholstery, ask for progress photos. Nobody needs all that nasty old fabric hidden underneath, and it's not fair to the clients as they don't necessarily know any better, nor should they have to. Most hospitals are actually crazy trusting about who they release dead bodies to when people die. Oftentimes I show up with just a gurney and someone's name scribbled on a post-it note, and they just let me walk out with somebody's grandma without asking my name or getting ID or anything. The amount of salt and fat in your food, especially at high-quality restaurants. We kept a large hotel pan full of clarified butter behind the line. It'd be empty by the end of the night. There you go, folks. That's the reason why food at restaurants always seems to taste better, because it's a friggin' cardiac arrest waiting to happen. All hotels have bed bugs at one point or another. High-end and low-end hotels. What separates the good hotels from the bad ones are how they handle bed bugs once they are discovered. But if you ever ask the front desk if they have ever had bed bugs, they will typically lie and say no, since most people don't understand how bed bug infestations happen. Classical musician. Lots of us at your local symphony are drugged up on beta blockers when we perform. I used to work in daycare. I've worked at several. I'm American. The law in Washington state was 14 toddlers to 2 staff, and most daycares try to run at the maximum amount, which provides a terribly stressful environment for children. Even if you enroll your kid in a daycare with less children to teacher ratio, the daycare is usually trying to raise it, and a couple less kids being there is temporary. State regulations can be bizarre and cause even less ratio for care. For example, every child must have their diaper changed every 2 hours or more, all day, and be documented. Multiply that by 14 kids, so changing all 14 diapers/potty training some every 2 hours for 8 to 10 hours. The 2-staff rule is really just one person watching the kids for most of the day while the other person is changing diapers. A good environment being provided is almost impossible when one person is watching 14 toddlers. The state taxes daycares for breaking any small rule, so they struggle to make money and pay people fairly/hire more staff. I'm pretty sure there was a better staff-to-pet ratio at my local doggy daycare than at the human ones in Washington. Granted, the dogs are probably better about going to the bathroom. Vet worker here. Probably doesn't count as a secret, but we absolutely do pet your cats and dogs a lot when you bring them in. The majority of regular broadcast radio shows are pre-recorded. If a DJ is broadcasting live, usually the morning shows, they still have no control over what music plays. It's all pre-programmed. They'll usually record phone requests and replay them during the voice break before the requested song is scheduled to play anyway, to make sure it seems like they're playing/taking requests. When the studio is empty, all phone lines are sent to busy, so no one calls and realizes there's no one there to answer. Honestly, I think the surprising thing is finding out that radio stations are still a thing, and not just being run out of people's spare bedrooms at this point. At the airlines, we generally have no idea where your bag is at any given time. It follows a chain of events to get to the right place. If it ends up missing, no one is looking for your bag. Your file gets loaded in a computer, and when your bag is eventually scanned somewhere, a person is notified to grab it before it moves on to somewhere else. This also means if you jump to an earlier flight, there is a strong chance that your bag is going to fly on the original final flight. The time is usually too little to go find it, re-tag it, and get into a new flight. If you jump to another airline and we have already re-tagged it / handed it off to a different airline, it is done. We are not going to be able to retrieve it. It is flying on that flight. Just because your bag tag shows CLT on it does not mean it was accidentally sent there. We often send bags through multiple cities as it will reunite with you and your bag hours faster than the next direct flight. Sometimes we even send it on other airlines that you never even flew on. We may even send it the other way around the globe. LAX to Dubai? You may have flown through London on British Airways, but the fastest way for me to send your bag may be through Seoul, South Korea on Delta and Korean Air. We try our best, but it's a question of volume, staffing, time, and technology. Nurse manager here. We nurses aren't saints. Generally, most of us are caring, hard-working people, but we have the same people problems as the general population. Opioid addiction, affairs with married men, DUIs, time card fraud, the list goes on. Affairs, DUIs, and fraud. Yeah, that's what I typically think about when I think of people problems. I mean, they are, but what a specific list. Come on, OP, which ones are yours? Military grade literally translates into the lowest bidder. A lot of military personnel, especially the Marines, use stuff from the Vietnam War, hand-me-downs from the Army, etc. The government spends as little as possible on outfitting its troops in 99% of cases. That most of those 3 people have booked this hotel today or 4 people are looking at this product right now pop-ups on travel agency websites and e-commerce sites are lies. Totally static and made up. X model. If you're looking at brandless and cheap lingerie online, especially those from country I've worked in, there's a 60% chance that the models aren't 18. Bartender here. We hate everybody. Having spent a fair amount of time in bars in my 20s, I must say that this fact does not surprise me. Nursing homes have no freaking clue how to order medication for their residents. Work in telecommunications. 5G does not cause coronavirus. Wash your fruits and vegetables. If a box breaks open, the produce falls out, we rebox it and ship it. If you're at a cheap budget place in a poorer part of town or understaffed, there's absolutely a chance people don't wash their hands before cooking or don't wear gloves. I've seen plenty of buns hit the dirty butt floor and still be used. Look, I go to the Wendy's in the sketchy part of town because they always put on a little extra bacon. I don't care where that bun has been. I knew what I was getting into. Ello's humor is how many in 911 call centers and emergency services handle some of the crap we deal with. I work at a fabrication shop, and the number of times something isn't a spec and still gets sent out is unbelievable. This isn't a secret, but everything is photoshopped. I'm constantly pointing out to people a bad Photoshop job in an ad, and people will say, "What are you talking about? Looks real to me." Trust me, everything is photoshopped, put through a filter, shrunken, stretched, brightened, just to make you want to buy it. But what if the thing I want to buy is Photoshop? My friend is a doctor. He said that hospitals always overcharge the patient. One solution to this is to ask for an itemized invoice, and more often than not, there will be a significant reduction in the invoice. I tried it once, and it worked. Edit, spelling/typo. Teachers do have favorites. There's a little Asian 19-year-old in that Mickey outfit. Construction. Pee bottles everywhere. Teachers have favorites and talk crap about the students they don't like all the time. I was a teacher for 10 plus years and ate lunch in the teacher's lounge like 4 times because I just couldn't stand it. I'm talking about kids as young as kindergarten. Same thing with parents. Teachers talk crap about them. PETA parents is a common name given to parents who dare to contact teachers about their kids. Usually parents who call and demand better grades for their kids, fully entitled and truly a-holes usually. If the customer is actually right, someone fricked up. Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. 90% of the time, your computer trouble is entirely your own fault. Ah, yes, the K18 error. What is a K18 error, I hear some of you asking? Well, it is referencing that the problem is stemming from something about 18 inches from the keyboard, namely You. Open secret? The pay is crap. You cannot make a living this way unless you are extremely lucky. I have a day job and very understanding wife. What's worse is how some game companies purposefully target folks wanting to break into game design by offering them work at super low rates. 3 cents a word is common but still low, but I've seen butt hats offering $0.005 per word. Yes, half a cent. Or the scam where there's no pay because you'll receive exposure. Ooh, I've been paid in exposure. That stuff is harder to turn into dollars than Bitcoin. Going to the hospital by ambulance doesn't mean you'll see a doctor any quicker. The recycling market is way down in the US because China has stopped accepting most of our recyclables. So a lot of what you think you're recycling is just ending up in the landfill anyway. Advertisers can show you ads that are related to what your wife, husband, girlfriend, etc. has been looking at online. If you have acknowledged your relationship, i.e. marital status on Facebook, and are often in the same location, advertisers assume you're talking about getting a bike or planning a trip, etc., and will serve you ads even if you haven't been the person looking them up. Edit. I should clarify, it's not down to the specific advertiser or brand that know all this information about you, and it's not associated with you as an individual, i.e. they don't know your name, but rather it's a program that collects data and sells ad space based on that data. That just because something is patented doesn't make it any good. Stupid crap is patented every day. Your doctor has literally no idea how to perform any lab tests that you need. TV shows make it look like the doc just runs down to the empty lab and has results in a moment, but it takes qualified lab technologists to get the tests done. Also, 9 times out of 10, if your doctor or nurse says they need to collect a sample a second time because of something the lab did, it's to cover up that they, the nurse/doctor, messed up something in the collection process. I'm not a therapist myself, but when I was job shadowing at a clinic, the therapists who were on lunch break would gossip about their patients and joke about how screwed up they are. I'm certain that not all therapists do this, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is a common thing. Honestly, this and the one about the teachers talking about students, it doesn't surprise me. Those are 2 positions that can be really stressful, and the people doing those positions need to vent. And the best place to vent is with others who know what you're going through. Your kid did not start talking at 4 months old. A first word only counts as such if it is an approximation of a word in the language and used as such. A child saying mama while reaching for her mother counts. A child saying doos while reaching for juice counts. A child saying daunting while babbling does not count. They have to be intentionally communicating an idea. Grocery stores make very little money from the middle of the store. Most of the profits come from the produce department. Yes, we know you're pooling money to get the one person at drinking age to buy you a case of drink. No, we will not honor the transaction since the cops will be all over our butts. And in the store I work in, yes, the police do check if we're being vigilant. One screw up and we have to say bye-bye to our liquor license. The sauna only gets cleaned out once a week, twice if you're lucky. Also, the pools are never emptied for cleaning, they have filters for that. Essentially a gigantic fish tank for humans. The chlorine sterilized any fecal matter or any form of bile that comes out of the human body. All we do is scoop the chunks and send you all back in. I wasn't grossed out by this until that last sentence. Next time I'm at a pool, I will be completely unable to think about anything other than the chunks. Not my profession, but as someone who is interested in it, runway models are all very underweight. In other news, water is wet. Usually BMIs in the 15 to 16s, and they're often told they're too fat getting towards the upper 16s. But they don't say weight stuff usually for plausible deniability reasons. They'll use measurements and inches. Certain other kinds of models are more like 16s to 17s. High fashion/runway models are the skinniest. If you don't know, a BMI of 18.5 to 25 is the healthy range. In terms of categorizations of anorexia, according to the DSM, above 17 is mild, 16 is moderate, and 15 is a severe anorexia, and under 15 is extreme. Although the most common stock photos of anorexics are like BMIs of 12 or 13, most anorexics don't even get that thin. It's a problem and adds to many people with anorexia not feeling sick enough because they're not so thin their organs are shutting down and they look like an actual skeleton. That level is rare. Many people at higher weights are still very sick. Of course, there is more to eating disorders than just a low weight, but I'm certain that a very large amount of models are anorexic and do everything they can to hide that. Those rules some places have put out about models having to be a healthy weight or over a BMI of like 18 are an absolute joke because clearly none are remotely near that high. We're so used to this that we often don't realize it's unhealthily underweight. Even most actresses on TV, etc., are a little underweight or ranging close to it, though not nearly as much as runway/professional models. The standard in Hollywood nowadays is probably doing massive amounts of exercise and hovering right around the borderline between underweight and healthy, 18's BMI, so that they look underweight despite being maybe not because of being fairly muscular and usually getting some minor plastic surgeries/lipo/fillers. Although a good amount of actresses are just plain underweight. It just depends on if they try to focus on being healthy or don't really care. Probably in the 1990s is when it was the most about being just skinny, but more recently there's the added pressure of maintaining both a healthy weight and standards that most people would have to be underweight to match. The underweight route is actually probably easier than staying at a healthy weight, yet maintaining the standards they feel pressure to. Fun fact, just because someone is still attractive doesn't mean they aren't unhealthily underweight. Not talking about Instagram models and the like here at all, though, LMAO, or certain models who have gotten into it through family connections, because those aren't real models. Too Long Didn't Read, the standard in both modeling and Hollywood is a look that is quite underweight. That is the ideal in Western society, looking underweight, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. There are massive, insane amounts of pressure around this in these industries. People often are in denial about how bad it really is. I'm all about respecting all body types, and I know some folks are naturally really skinny. But hey, folks, never ever put your health at risk to achieve an unrealistic body. You're beautiful without starving yourself. In development aid projects by the big players, the need for the project and the design to bring about desired change is often just crafted in drawing rooms based on assumptions. Rarely do people actually visit the sites before a project starts to ask the community what they truly need. Once the funding comes in, the communities are told that you need this and you'll benefit out of it, but to be honest, the people who benefit the most are the development aid employees and few government officials. Or if it's a U.S. aid project, those who benefit are the U.S. corporations, often at the cost of the community's livelihood and the environment, especially in developing countries. The process of home installations by big companies will almost always be worse than going straight to a licensed contractor. Not the install of the items themselves, cabinets, floors, tile, but the scheduling and sales of products is terribly orchestrated. Because they have so many clients that use third parties for measurements, installation, and the fabrication of products, there's so much that can go wrong, and nothing ever goes to plan. Almost always because of the lack of communication. A company I worked for left an 85-year-old woman without a kitchen for 2 months before I finally came in and installed her cabinets. She then waited another month for the countertops. If she would have gone straight to my company, then she probably would have had the entire thing done in a weekend. I will add to this, make sure you research your contractors first. There are quite a few awful contractors out there who will leave you high and dry, so be careful. Software developer. Lots of large financial systems are held together with duct tape code and have no real documentation or specifications. Also, there's a good chance that a large number of the staff are fresh out of uni and are just muddling along. I did my student placement at a major insurance software company which handled billions in transactions. At one point, the entire support team was a single student with no oversight. In the profession of internet journalism, article writers just troll Reddit for 98% of their stories. Almost every elderly person living in a retirement home wants to die. There's a grace period if the person is relatively healthy, but as soon as they realize they are destined to live in the same room for the rest of their life, they are quick to ask everyone around them to kill them. Just today, I was asked by about 4 members if I would kill them. Edit. To clarify, the wing I work in is assisted living, where most everyone in there is unable to live on their own and requires assistance around the clock. Most people have some form of dementia, and most of their families stuck them there because they couldn't deal with it. I worked in a nursing home for a bit. It can be a really depressing place. Changes need to be made. I wish I had something more positive to add than that, but yeah. Libraries throw away, pulp, or otherwise recycle a lot of old books. We get a lot of awful, tatty stuff donated. We have old, manky books that we need to get rid of to make shelf space for newer stock. And we have standards for anything we sell off at library stock sales. It's just easier to throw things out. Sometimes things go to the workroom for repair or cleaning. Straight in the bin. We do this because if customers knew they might damage things that they wanted to buy from us. Accounting can be boring at times. Whoa, hold on a minute. What? Oh, I don't believe that one. We don't have time to call your references or old employers unless you're interviewing for a more prominent position. Lie away. Edit. I agree with some of the replies here. This only applies to companies with big turnover for positions that don't require a degree. Automotive technician here, and maybe I've been extremely fortunate, but the shop is usually not out to screw you. A lot of the upsells people scream about are the fact that I have to take these parts off to get to the part one have to fix, replace. The parts that come off have 100,000 miles on them. Let me save you labor and replace them now instead of 6 months to a year later. The other upsells that cause people to cry foul are usually maintenance recommended by the manufacturer at that interval. And in my personal experience, when someone is getting screwed at a shop, it's because of a service writer or service manager trying to sell unneeded work, not the mechanic. 99% of all programming comes from Stack Overflow. All gallons of house paint, regardless of quality, cost about $5 to manufacture. I work for a UK police force. The area that I work in has a population of around 200,000 people, spread across 4 major towns and tens of smaller villages and the other rural areas. On an average weekday, you might only have as few as 10 to 15 officers covering all of the calls that come in. We frequently run out of resources and have no one free to send to emergency incidents, which are supposed to have a 10-minute response time. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.